So that was probably the most action-packed episode of Arrow this season so far, and possibly, if not out of all of the seasons. Let's talk about Oliver versus Diaz in Slabside. What is up, Vigilantes? Welcome to a brand new Arrow breakdown and review of episode 7, the Slabside Redemption. Now, even before this episode came out, I think from the last week's teaser and the synopsis for this episode, we were all quite excited for what this could hold. We knew it was going to be jam-packed, we knew it was going to be directed by James Bamford, and we knew it'd be one of the most taxing sort of stunt work episodes that Oliver, or should I say Stephen Amell, has been put through so far, and that didn't fail to meet expectations. It far exceeded it. It was absolutely brilliant. Fight choreography, action, drama, all the way throughout the episode. So just before I dive into the specifics of this episode, guys, if you really like this episode and you're enjoying the Arrow reviews, be sure to hit that like button, as it really does show your support for the channel, and of course subscribe for more Arrow videos just like this. So essentially this whole episode, this entire episode was more or less about Oliver versus Diaz in Slabside. We didn't have any flash forward scenes, we didn't have any really scenes of Diggle and other team, Fractured Arrow, Argus, or whatever have you. It was just about Diaz coming to Slabside and trying to kill Oliver, because he has been a pain in his side for far too long now, to the fact that he's gone to prison himself in an attempt to get Oliver out. Now, in terms of nitpicking things this episode, there wasn't actually too much at all, only apart from a couple, and that is the way Diaz got into the prison and actually how it ended for Diaz, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, I have to say, the way Diaz just killed those guards right outside Slabside, like a maximum security prison. What? How did nobody hear that? Well, just rush to the doors, but okay, we'll skip over that. But more or less immediately in this episode, we had that Stanley payoff from last week's episode, because we know that Stanley's been lying to Oliver, even manipulating him to a degree to get him to do what he wants, coming across as this feeble guy who needs the Green Arrow's protection, more or less a fanboy, right? So Oliver kind of shut him down straight away, saying we were never friends, and he's going to make sure that Stanley pays for what he did to Bronze Tiger last episode, because he essentially framed Bronze Tiger because it was actually Stanley who in fact killed that other guy. And Oliver shortly after that went to see Bronze Tiger and said, don't worry, I'm going to get you out, which was quite a cool thing to see, because he doesn't have to do that, but Oliver's conscience, I guess, feels a bit too guilty to let Bronze Tiger just, rot away. And their dynamic this episode, obviously when Bronze Tiger came out and accompanied Oliver, which I'll get to talking about in a second, was just great. I really like those two together. But let's talk about Diaz meeting Oliver in Visitation. Okay, so you can nitpick this as well. I don't know how the hell he got through that. I mean, just how? But this moment was just truly menacing. I thought Kirk Avicidos, I think that's how you say his second name, his acting here was really on point. He was almost bubbling and boiling across the screen from Oliver in his face at how much he wanted to crush him. When he was talking about, I don't know, threatening the other families in the visitation room, and you just saw Oliver's reaction to that, like, so he couldn't just say, oh, that's Ricardo Diaz right there and then. I just found this moment thrilling. These are kind of my favorite scenes in any show, when there's like seriously emotional packed feelings being portrayed between two characters like that, and Diaz was just like, I thought this is going to be my last chance for payback. And then even on Oliver's side, when he got worked up because Diaz threatened little William and Felicity, Oliver smashing that phone in the screen, man, I just love that energy. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I think you guys know what I mean between scenes like this. They're just so raw and real, and I just love it. Now let's talk about that bit where Oliver does a bit of science to escape his cell. Now maybe I missed this bit, but like, was that like a bar of soap with like a battery in it? Now I know you can get things in prison or whatever, but like, I don't remember. Well, why did Oliver get that, first of all, with the battery in it? Like, did he plan to escape? Or did he have this already waiting for him there, just in case he ever did need to, like, science, Breaking Bad out of his cell? I don't know, but either way, like, it was cool. Oliver was forced to essentially risk his freedom because he was getting out this day, which we can't forget about, which I feel like they really rushed in our faces. I know at the end of last episode, Laura was like, oh yeah, I made a deal for, like, him and Diaz, right? But I feel like all of a sudden in this episode, I don't know why I was a bit surprised, but it was like, Oliver's getting released? Oh. I feel like they were just going to kind of skim over it a little bit longer, maybe put it out to next episode for him to get released. because it was just all of a sudden deal right at the tail end of last episode, and this one release. But this led into our first more or less choreography actiony sequencey scene where Oliver was like running away from the guards, like taking them out, running up the stairs. It was just jumping side to side, left, right and center action, and I was just impressed by that alone, let alone what we still had left to come in this episode. I mean, this episode truly did push the boundaries in terms of how much action you can just shove in to an episode. We even had scenes like Bronze Tiger and Oliver just walking down a corridor, and you know, whether you realized it or not, people left, right and center were running around behind them, tearing down other people, prisoners attacking guards. It was just fantastic. Then we had that somewhat villainy inspiring moment from Diaz in the courtyard, rallying all of the, you know, basically the prisoners to attack the guards, saying like, they disrespected you by keeping you locked up. Like, I guess they did, so let's go after them, right? But no, this is just more swagger from Diaz. Like, he's definitely an intimidating guy. I don't think any other prisoner would really go up against him. I'm pretty sure in this scene as well, he slit another guard's throat, and that happened a couple of times in this episode, I think, which is pretty bad. Like, I mean, it's cool in a way. Like, they did say they were going to push the boundaries of what Arrow could do at the time slot it's out on TV. So in this episode, you saw like the beginning of it happen, a knife go there, the neck even start to bleed, and of course the rest of it was off camera. But they really wanted you to feel how, you know, on fire, for lack of a better word, you know, Richard Dragon was in this episode. And just how flared up and how compelled he is to get Oliver at any consequence, really. Now, when Oliver was getting attacked by Brick and Samson, that was pretty cool. I mean, Samson was about to bleed out in 6 minutes because Oliver got that certain artery or whatever. Brick, I mean, they're just freaking arseholes, right? I mean, I thought when Oliver got pepper sprayed, I did think, how is he going to get out of that? Because that would be brutal. That would take quite a while to get over, but of course, this is TV. Somehow Oliver recovered from that pretty quickly, but you know, pepper spray to the eyes, I mean, come on. But thank God Bronze Tiger stepped in there, and this was the start of them kind of having this partnership throughout the episode and helping each other out. Like, I definitely respect Bronze Tiger a lot more, and they've set that up throughout the past few episodes. You know, when we found out that Bronze Tiger saved, was it Lila, I think, before, and I don't know, they just gave him like a promising future. And of course, Oliver and Bronze Tiger kept going throughout this episode. They went to a place where Oliver could get a phone, and that couldn't have been any more predictable on behalf of Diaz, because he was like, you know, I have a departing gift from like the Longbow Hunters. Somehow they like blocked the signal or something like that. So what I really wanted to talk about here is that it from the Longbow Hunters? Was that like their Arrow's way of telling the audience that, okay, the Longbow Hunters are kind of gone now? It did say more or less the words, I'm paraphrasing here, departing gift from the Longbow Hunters, in reference to, you know, Oliver trying to obviously get the signal out of prison and call for backup, and the Longbow Hunters stopped that through some kind of blocking. So I really hope that isn't the end. I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of what happened to Diaz in this episode, he's not actually dead. And I will get to that a little bit later. So the fact that he's been made a series regular, will the Longbow Hunters be returning whenever this guy still rises up at some point in the back half of this season? Now, the next Bronze Tiger and Oliver bit that I just loved. I mean, I can't compliment these guys enough. And I mean, at the end of the day, they were like a partnership in this episode. But it's when they were racing to save those prison guards, or should I say climbing. They were climbing up. It was all like one sequence, I think. I loved it. They were just climbing up the stairs because the guards were being beaten right at the top level. And it was just fantastic. Like Oliver running up the stairs, like jumping between the bars, like sliding between them, running up even more. These two and the action sequences were just brutal. And it was just exhilarating to watch. I mean, as I said, like we've all seen like several seasons of Arrow by now. Like this was just definitely one of the most awesome ones to witness. Now, I thought there was going to be a bit more to this scene because Oliver just walked in this room, you hear a little tss, and it's like, wait, what was that? And it was Stanley scurrying away with a little sedative. Now, I would have wanted a bit more from this scene, but it did give us a little bit, especially in conjunction with that scene we got towards the end of the episode with Stanley. But yeah, essentially Stanley drugs Oliver, has a little bit of a go at him, saying, you were going to leave me here, blah, 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 blah. Oliver was trying to manipulate him to say, oh, you know, you could be my sidekick and stuff like that. Essentially, nothing really comes of this apart from the unveiling of Stanley's character, that he was and he has murdered other people. Now, in the comics, that is actually, believe it or not, children, which is pretty messed up. I'm going to be so intrigued to find out if you know, they actually introduced that later on this season, because I'll just jump to this bit. Obviously, Stanley supposedly kills Brick. I don't know if he does that definitively, but he does kind of like, I don't know, maybe loses consciousness because he's bleeding out, but he escapes from the morgue, right, on level 2. So he's evidently going to return at some point this season. He might just be a one episode wonder kind of thing, essentially like a meta of the week, if you will, but a nice kind of maybe more enjoyable one, since we've seen him quite consistently throughout the first part of this season. But will they introduce that weird ass creepy child, you know, comic book version, you know, because he's killed people like that? Or when they were referring to people, did they actually just mean like grown adults that he's gone on as a serial killer as before? I don't know. I would love to know what you think about that. Now we're building up to the really big scene now, where essentially Oliver goes to Diaz and literally shouts, "Diaz!" And then he comes down, electrical fire starts, pretty cool. Like Diaz just absolutely loves it whenever a fire gets going. No pun intended there with the whole Richard Dragon thing, but you know, he definitely gets off over fire. And then we had that hand-to-hand dagger fight, really, really cool. Oliver was getting beaten, you know, comments from Diaz saying prison has made you weak. This was really, really cool to see. It's really cool to see, you know, just Diaz in general use a bit more of his comic book skills as a martial artist. I mean, he's pretty badass in the comics compared to the way the TV show is only sparingly given that to us, but whenever they do it, it's definitely highlighting that tremendous skill he has in the comics. Now, this bit intrigued me. Now, you could call this nitpicky in a way. Maybe they'll address it a little bit later in the season, but I am interested in the fact that when Diaz says, you know, I'm a lot stronger now, because I think when he did kick Oliver, they did kind of show some kind of superhuman elements there, because he like flipped backwards into the cell against the cell wall, and that's when they specifically said, or Diaz specifically said, I'm a lot stronger now. Now, they haven't explained to us what the heck he's doing with that strength juice, unless you take the lines he was saying at the time. If you remember when the Longbow Hunters were just standing there all a bit scared of what he was doing, or just like, holy shit, like, what's he doing? He was injecting himself in that scene. This was a few episodes back, and he was talking about how Black Siren, like, you know, obviously threw him off the roof at the end of last season, and he broke quite a lot of bones in his body, and I think he was just in a lot of pain, and he's channeled that pain into strength. But when he punched the wall after injecting himself, it was somewhat superhuman enhanced strength juice, right? It wasn't quite Mirakuru, but something similar. Now, I definitely believe that Arrow intended to attribute some of that strength juicy-esque kind of ability in this fight with Oliver, and definitely gave us a hint of that through him saying that he's stronger. But when are they going to explain that it gave him some kind of strength properties? I hope they do, because that still hasn't been explained at all. Like, it just hasn't, apart from what I've just said. I found it very interesting, and this will definitely be consequences in the next episode or the episode after that to come. They're definitely going to pick this storyline up again. But when Diaz said to him, like, did you know your Felicity held a gun to my head? And Oliver's like, I don't believe that. You know, she wouldn't do that. But as we all know, that's true from the end of last episode. So we're going to have to wait until, you know, Oliver, you know, talks to Felicity about the dark side that's come out in her. But this bit, trust me, I'm not trying to shit on the episode. I thought this episode was one of the best I've ever seen. But the way Diaz went down, and he isn't dead, by the way, he's coming back, but the way it just happened, I have to say, it did feel a bit like, okay, cool, I guess I'll go with that. But do you know what I mean? It wasn't the best way I can kind of put this and my reaction to it. It was kind of, I just felt like a little bit anticlimactic. It was such a cool episode, such a cool scene between those two fighting each other. And Oliver, it just went from Diaz towering over Oliver to Oliver on the floor, very kind of beaten up, to somehow Oliver standing up and just twisting the knife in him. It's like almost one of those things where the writers just write it that way happening, so it happens, because it wasn't almost really believable, because Diaz wasn't mega distracted, he wasn't doing anything, because that would have made it more believable. And it was just like he like handed the knife to Oliver so he could just stab him. So as I said, I'm okay with it. I just felt like it was a bit anticlimactic to what I expected. And when I say that, I don't even know what I expected, but I guess I wanted some kind of like epic ending. And I know there's gonna be some mega fans out there, and I get where people come from when they say stuff like this, because if you think enough of it in your head, you can kind of understand it, right? I guess, or you can think of a reason, but they're gonna be like, oh, Diaz just didn't expect it, or blah blah blah, so when Oliver did that, it was just a surprise. But either way, at the end of that, I am thinking, how else could it have gone? I don't know, maybe just a bit more of a blow where he would have beaten Diaz to a pulp, and then that's how he went down. But from Diaz being so strong to just then being taken down when he shouldn't really have been, did just feel anticlimactic. I can't put it any other way. But still, Not saying this episode was bad or even that was bad. I just thought they could have done better with that. And then, guys, at the end, wow. Now, this moment was almost tear-jerking in the sense that, you know, when Oliver left the prison and saw Diggle and Felicity there, I really liked that moment. The music and all of it, like they were kissing. Felicity acting was good. You know, I believed that she was crying. It was nice for them to see each other. It's been like, some people were saying, has Oliver been in Slabside for too long? So the development was truly, up until this moment, deserving of the emotional impact it had on Oliver and Felicity. But when they were zooming out of Slabside and Diggle was right there, and then they were zooming out and Diggle's just disappeared. That was hilarious. So yeah, that was a deserved nitpick. I don't care what anyone says, but it looks like Diggle, in between some Argus training, has been spending some time with the League of Assassins or League of Shadows, whatever you want to call it, because he has learned how to just disappear like that. But of course, guys, this episode was great. It was fantastic. A true accomplishment of, you know, this definitely, if you're looking at Arrow's accomplishments across 7 seasons, this would be in its own frame on the wall for many, many, many different reasons. Whether that's just the acting, the story, the choreography, the directing, the cinematics of it all. Perfect. Really, really top-notch example of what Arrow and superhero CW TV shows can pull off. But of course, Vigilantes, I would love to know what you thought of this episode down in the comments below. Do you agree with anything I had to say? Do you disagree? Or do you want to share your thoughts on something that I may have forgot to have even included in this review? But other than that, guys, if you enjoyed this review and you enjoyed this Arrow episode, definitely leave a like on this video, as it really does show your support for the channel and support for the content and the show. Of course, everybody, links are in the description as always, and there will be some more videos for you to watch in the outro of this video. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you, Vigilantes, in the next video. Goodbye.